Good morning, everyone. Anthony Tharp. It's June 7th, 2023. Just making another insert. We haven't talked in a while. I took a few days off to go on another life building experience or adventure. So I'm back touching bases before I take off again, because at my age, the most one can do is take trips, visit the doctor, enjoy a movie, sit by the water, and don't take life for granted. So today I'm by the water. I'm by the water again today and relaxing. My intention was to come out and walk. I came out a bit late and it's cooking out there. So I made a short little walk and decided to hide from the sun as usual. My cardiologist suggested that the people who suffer from the highest degree of lack of vitamin D are black people. He's white. I said, because you know what? Well, he didn't say this part, but I understood. Most of us, or a large percentage of us who happen to be black, we tend to hide from the sun. We have the melanin, and that's to absorb the necessary natural factors that produce vitamin D in our system. As a result of hiding and sitting in the air conditioning, a large percentage of us lack vitamin D. Why is that important? I think that's one of the chief vitamins we need for our body to function properly. And if we're not producing that and you're not taking supplements, then we're in trouble. I take a lot of supplements when it comes to vitamin D issue. In fact, I didn't even know you could overdose on vitamin D, and I was just taking a ton of it before I realized, hey, you better read this thing. After already I found out you can only take but so much within a day. So be careful of what you're taking, read up on it, and make sure it's safe for you to take in the quantity that you're taking it. Because again, too much stuff in excess is a problem. I want to thank you for giving me the time and taking the time to listen to what I have to say today again. And though I was away for a few days and not doing any videos, it didn't stop me from checking in on other persons or other bloggers who are out there producing videos. And of course, typically it's about the current affairs, and typically it's sites that deal with Jamaica currently. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm Jamaican. And I have a keen interest in the country or the island of Jamaica. And I have a passion about seeing my people make progress, and a resistance to those who would try to impede that progress, whether consciously, politically, or otherwise. But when you spot people like that undermining the integrity of your nation, they're also undermining the integrity and standing of our people, and selling the notion that for some reason we are incapable of being giants on this planet and creating civilizations on this planet, which of course is a farce. Our ancestry tells us that clearly, from the Olmecs in Central America, and I submit that the Olmecs weren't just about in Mexico. The Olmecs were all over, and they spread into what we now call North America. They spread deep into South America, and they're still finding evidence that we were all over that place. I mean, apart from the giant heads that clearly show us Africans being represented in those areas, our ancestors were smart enough not to just paint on paper or write on barks or scribble on some cave wall. they were smart enough to do our monuments and our dedication to our people in stone. And when you do stuff in stone, it's going to be around for a long time. And that's what happens. That's why some divine force must have said, you know what, do this, because at some point in time, we're going to need to refer to it to tell the world, this is us. And the lies and the rumors and the misinformation that they've been spreading about people of African descent. And I use the term African, as I always said to you, loosely, only because of contemporary representation of the continent from which our people obviously are more predominantly in terms of numbers. In terms of numbers, we're predominantly all over Africa. But Africa was once known typically to most of the world at some point as Ethiopia or Kemet or Kush. And so it's important, and I believe at some point in time we, as so-called people of African descent, should reclaim who we are by name, by virtue, by action, by culture, by food, you name it, by our history. And so we reclaim who we truly are and not accept what somebody has pushed down on us and labeled us what they wanted to, and we accept it because it does have the psychological effect of making you feel inferior. Somebody's coming in to name who you are, tell you who you are, give you a name, destroy your history, tell you didn't achieve anything, you're just a leech on the planet. Then it's going to have a devastating effect on how we progress. And I think for the last couple of 100 years, that's what's been happening to people of African descent, so-called. Loosely again, African descent. And we have to reclaim who we are. And I'm telling you, once you discover who you are and you know who you are, then it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new thought pattern or vision of your future. And because you know your past. I think it was Bob Marley who said, if you don't know your past, or something like that, something to the effect. But one has to know their past before they can forge ahead in the future. And as long as we remain a lost people, then we are going to be confused, and our children, our generations to come, are going to be lost as well. So it's important that we not only learn who we are and discover who we are, but we write our own story. Not his story, that we now call history. His story is his story. That's what we call history now. Because we always studying from the perspective of our conquerors, or the people who oppressed us, incarcerated us. We've looked at our history from his perspective, our story from his perspective, when obviously it's been written to make him look like he's a god, superior, and therefore everybody else is superior. And I must make a disclaimer here because I know not every European has that attitude, and they never had. I won't generalize and say all of the persons who we call Europeans or of European descent are quote-unquote white, which is an ambiguous word as well, because what's truly white? I've seen people of all shades, including black people, who we could literally say have white skin. So it's what we've been caught up in. Humanity, for economic reasons, have adopted some economic systems throughout our lifetime and before our lifetime, including slavery. And slavery is an economic system. It was devised, and implemented specifically for economic purposes by some people who not only weaponize racism using slavery, but they've continued to weaponize race as a means to segregate and separate people. And during that distraction or separation, they've craftily used that opportunity to divest several million, if not billions of us, of who we really are and our potential as a people to grow and to become successful. And success is another word that we have to measure how we use it, because success was relative to where you were, where you are, where you came from as a person or per people. And so, those of us in the West have come to accept success as being a person that has wealth, and wealth in terms of money and power. And so again, we have to look at it from the perspective, when we're looking at different people, different culture, what do they determine or understand to be success or be successful. So in short, the world is built on a number of relativity, and we have to be conscious of that. Once you discover who you are and you understand how the world operates, then it becomes much easier for us to navigate the various issues that we have to deal with at our local level. Went through all of that to say that I've been looking at a number of bloggers and commentaries, quite a few, on the social networks about what they're now saying is happening in Jamaica. And I commented on a couple of things as well related to our politicians, the constitutional amendments or change of the constitution that's apparently imminent. We've talked about the social and economic conditions of the people and of the country. And I've mentioned, like everybody else, that something needs to be done. And like I've said to everybody in the past and on my previous videos, and I encourage you to go back and review those videos, because some of them have some valuable information, as well as my system of thinking. And I'm certain if you listen to those statements and formulate your own decisions, then you will understand that you're very important and you need to play a role in deciding how we go forward as a people. And when I say go forward as a people, I'm not just talking as black people or Chinese people or Asian people or Europeans. I'm saying as a people on the planet, because apparently scientists are saying all of us are related, and we have various theories as to how we came about. But the important thing is that some of us are related. I have cousins, close cousins, who have green eyes and white skin and blonde hair, brunette, black hair, curly hair, kinky hair. I have cousins who are Asians, look just like Asians, close cousins. And so we definitely are a mixture of a number of persons on the planet, or races, as they would say now, on planet Earth. So we don't have time to waste going into our empowering people who are racist. We should just ignore and build on being humans and build humanity, so we appreciate everybody. And as soon as you realize that you can become successful without stepping on people's necks because of who they are or what they look like, then it's an empowering thing for us to move forward and really achieve what happiness is. So again, I paid attention to a number of bloggers, presenters on the internet regarding what's happening in Jamaica. And I think the general consensus is that we have a nation that's in trouble. And Jamaica is in trouble because we have politicians who have adapted this attitude that they are the ones that are being served, as opposed to them serving the people. And so we've seen where the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, has in fact behaved in a number of ways through certain actions that indicate that there's total disregard and disrespect for the Jamaican people. And the statements and actions are offensive. And we should not sit idly by and allow this kind of behavior to go unchecked. It shouldn't be rewarded by us simply ignoring it and think it's okay, because it's going to come back later and really create havoc on us as a people. And whereas many of us won't be around for too much longer, you have your children and your grandchildren and your future coming. And I will remind you that as long as you have children alive and grandchildren and relatives that come from a common ancestry, you are still there. They are made up of your DNA. And so whether you like it or not, you are going to be living through those children for a very, very long time. And as I've said before, you could come popping out just as you are today, just as how you look, speak, think, somewhere down the road or in the future. So it's important that you stand up and check on issues that are undermining the progress of humanity and your people, your children, your generation. And don't think just sitting around eating food and ignoring what's going on is okay. It's not. I think people like that are cowards. People are in the press and claim they're representing the views and then giving people the notices and news that's happening on a daily basis. A lot of them are cowards. They're dishonest cowards who hide behind a pen and paper, and instead of alright, took a little break, had to take a call there as you suspect. Alright, so I'm gonna just go into it. As I said, the cowards that represent us in the press are amongst those persons who pretty much help to undermine a country and an island, and Jamaica is no different. So all those people in the press, I'm not hesitant to call you cowards because you're not printing the news. You have vital data and information that should be going out to people, and you're sitting on it. The other group that's undermining the integrity of Jamaica and allowing politicians to run amok of democracy and our system or system of independence are, believe it or not, people who are employed in government agencies and even organizations like trade unions and representative organizations like the JTA, the Police Federation, Nurses Association, Civil Servants Association, you name it. Those people who represent those persons, they sit on a lot of vital information that's critical to the progress of our nation. And I say this without hesitance because, like I have pointed out in the very, very near past, is that there are issues in the marketplace in Jamaica now that are critical to the stability of the nation, and the press has sat on it, and the social or political or even workers' organizations have also sat on it and refused to let the Jamaican people know and their members know. And why is it critical? Because in holding back information like the one I put out fairly recently about the ruling of Justice Tai, which was affirmed or supported by the Appeals Court of Jamaica, is saying that people who purchase property from real estate developers who didn't have a real estate dealer's license were engaged in illegalities. Both parties, both the developers and the people acquiring, it was an illegality. And that means that people don't have to continue honoring any of those agreements. Now, what does that mean? Means that bulk of the Jamaican people who purchase homes from these developers can legally, according to the ruling and according to what Justice Tai stated clearly to me, and what was again reaffirmed or confirmed by the real estate, not the real estate board, but the appeals court, is that these documents, contracts are all illegal, and therefore they can't be enforced against people. Now, what does that mean? It means that these organizations and the press and now keeping from people vital economic information that will empower them financially. Because now the law, which is the law now because of what the court ruled, is saying that you cannot be forced to honor any of these agreements. That means you can't be forced to pay a mortgage or the note that you use to issue a mortgage to the lender. You can't be forced. That means the money that you'll be paying to them, put it in your pocket. But guess what? The press, and I know the press because the Gleaner called me about the story, and their major concern was, am I going to appeal the matter? And as I said to you guys or everybody out there who's listening, or the listeners, is that no, I'm not going to appeal it. Why? I could, because frankly the ruling is as illegitimate as one can get, because as I've concluded, no really intelligent person reading the law, looking at customs, looking at conventions, looking at how the real estate board operates, looking at how developers have operated from the commencement of the Real Estate Board Act, and real estate dealers could have come up with such a ruling. But that said, I'm not going to appeal it because I saw the opportunity of giving Jamaicans the opportunity to take advantage of a major event. Yes, I'm going to be hurting because I lost a project that I should have been doing on 300 acres that would have netted me and my partners trillions of dollars, and I'm not talking Jamaican dollars. 300 acres of high-rise property, mixed-use commercial space, apartments, high-end family residence in in Clarendon, near what's that place? St. Mary? Not St. Mary. What's that town down there? Anyway, Fort Part, near Fort Part in Fort Part. And I can't understand the logic behind why the joint venture partner did what she did. Makes no sense. But then I'm not here to determine people's intelligence or intellect. But what's shocking is that you have a bunch of persons who sit on a bench and call the judiciary in Jamaica who seem not to recognize that decisions like this affect the nation. And I say that because, again, here's a development that was going to bring trillions of dollars, direct investment to the island of Jamaica by people who were intending to make the money stay and circulate in Jamaica. And here a court would look on it, and for whatever reason, and as I said, it can't be legitimate reasons. I looked at it, people called me about it, attorneys have called me about it, and the newspaper has called, the Gleaner specifically called to say they're doing a story on it, but they want to find out if I'm going to be appealing it. No, I haven't seen the story or heard anybody talking about it. So what are they doing? Why are they sitting on such a story? And it's important that this story comes to light for a number of reasons. One, two, it shows that our intelligentsia, that class of Jamaicans who we claim and label as the most intelligent and put them on benches to become judges in the judiciary, are they're lacking something. They're lacking exposure, they're lacking maturity, they're lacking sophistication. Because I'm not going to hesitate, because we need to reform the whole judicial process. Because if we have people like this continuing to make bad decisions, then it's going to affect the country in a negative way. And I'm not the only one saying that. The Privy Council said it some couple of years ago, that they've never seen the kind of bad decisions coming out of any other country. And Jamaica, it's the worst. And what gets to the Privy Council is what comes out of the appeals court. Not even dealing with the Supreme Court. Yeah, the appeals court affirms the Supreme Court, and then it goes on to the Privy Council. And what they're saying is, it's bad. It's really, really bad. When you have judges making these kinds of decisions, and it's not only bad for the client, the litigation, or the litigators, the various parties, but it's bad for the nation. Because A, it gives rise to distrust of not only the judiciary, but it gives rise to the distrust of the government. And in Jamaica's case, that has been reinforced recently. I remind you that I also mentioned that John Kerry had said the same thing, Secretary of the United States. And in fact, a couple months ago, maybe 2 months ago, could be 3, the U.S. State Department came out with a scathing report, a damning report about Jamaica, the judicial system in Jamaica. And it was just about the judicial system, but they did mention the judicial system. And so if we have all this crazy stuff happening in the judiciary in Jamaica and everybody else recognizes it, including Jamaicans, why aren't we really firmly standing up behind a reform or actions that will hold these people accountable? We can have a system, any kind of system, anywhere, representing a country or people, where people are unchecked. There are no mechanisms in place to say if they messed up that there aren't actions to take to fix it. And that's one of the reasons I say I'm not appealing. I've said it to the real estate board that they need to fix it. They need to go to government and parliament and fix it, and they need to put it in play that we get back what we're deserving of. And the way it's structured now, because the new law exists, they literally would have to start afresh, and people who have been caught in the illegalities, they couldn't reverse it, which means it's a quagmire for them. It's a dilemma for the system. And though it will have extremely severe effects on investors in the money markets and the banking system, the vast majority of people out there who are homeowners who purchase home from these developers would not be affected, because the vast majority don't have a dime in the stock market or in the investment arena. So, but again, it's crazy. It's crazy what's happening in Jamaica. And, again, we have these things happening and nobody's doing anything about it. We just move on. We accept it, we move on. And that cannot be healthy for us intellectually, economically, or otherwise. And it's going to cause Jamaica to collapse into a state as we have like in Haiti. It's corruption that killed Haiti. It wasn't Papa Doc. It was the fact that people allowed his corruption to continue so long and without penalty. And what did he do? Baby Doc just flew out. Papa Doc ruined the country. Baby Doc flew out with billions of dollars. And he's probably still out there. And then the country is in ruin. Jamaica is no different. The existing prime minister, he has his money abroad, or a ton of it abroad. He pulled his money out of SSL after he got inside information somehow that something was going down, and pulled all his money out, because there is no way in hell he would have taken all his money out of an organization if it was being successful. This gentleman and his wife, I have no problems with people making investment decisions, and I have no problems with an investor pulling their money out if they see or know that something is coming down that's going to cause them to lose their money. The difference here is the Prime Minister, and he represents not only himself, but he represents an entire nation. And people are looking at him both from the investment public or from personal just working and living or existing in the economy. They're looking at him and say, he's an example. What is it that you are doing that's going to ruin this country? And when he did that, and it came to light that he secured his money and left public money in those places, the public's money, people's money, so that they could take a loss, then it reflects on the Prime Minister. And that alone should have prompted the gentleman to withdraw himself from politics and resign. He didn't do that. He buckled down, and instead of resigning, he increased his salary and his salary of his cohorts, his MPs. But as I've said before, Jamaicans are to be blamed for that. We're the ones that people are looking at and say we're a stupid bunch, because we sit there and allow these people to rip us off, cheat us out of what's us, insult us, do offensive things to us, and then we sit there and accept it. And we accept it because we don't insist that they must move. And we find a few people, as again, the bloggers online, a lot of them are screaming bloody hell and going after these people. But the vast majority of people, both in Jamaica and outside of Jamaica, who are Jamaicans, and claim, and I say claim, they have an interest in Jamaica, they're not doing anything. They're too scared or too cowardly to stand up and do anything. And then those who stand up and fight to make a difference, then there's this criticism. People look at them as if, well, they're the ones undermining the country. No, they are victims. And they recognize that the victims themselves don't even recognize the fact that they are indeed victims. All these Jamaicans who are there now thinking all the action by the Prime Minister and his ministers over the years, and it's not only this Prime Minister and other politicians that work under the Prime Minister, this Prime Minister. It's in the past. It's a culture of repeatedly doing the same thing and getting away with it, so they continue to do it. And then Jamaicans sit there and figure, oh, well, it's the government. Guess what? The government, and you probably heard this before, if you never thought of it before, a lot of people are now saying it. The government actually works for you. So the government is not just this disjointed bunch of people who exist on their own and they're a superior class that everybody else bows down to and worships. The government, as we have wanted, legislated and fought for over the decades, is a representative government. It represents the people. And so if we're not willing to stand up, who's going to do it? And again, I point out to you that if you want the best life, for your children, if you want the best health care, best educational system, the best economic system in place so that you can travel, see the world, enjoy the world, and not just be a slave to the economy where you work, pay your bills, get sick and die, and that's all you exist for. You can't even love your family the way you should. You don't have time to spend with your family. There is no pleasure in life for you and your family. Then something is wrong with that. But if you sit there and you don't recognize that life is more than just paying bills, working, and then working to support an offensive government, working to support a government that's offensively dealing with you on a daily basis, ignoring your rights, ignoring your quality of life, and in fact become the leeches who suck dry whatever you're producing. Because when they take all these taxes and you hear about the people losing money or the country losing money, and they just go back out and increase taxation or come up with quote unquote creative taxation through ticketing and all of that kind of stuff, ticketing, stamp duties, you name it. When they come up with that and they use that to simply replenish the budget or replenish the coffers of the government, the coffers of the people, then what do you think they're doing? They're ripping you off. It's your money they're ripping off. And they keep ripping off, taking your money, taking what should be building your future and your children's future. And then you sit there with your mouth shut. I'm going to call it for what it is. You don't stand up. You're a bunch of cowards. You're a bunch of people who want somebody else to fight for you. And you don't do anything. You want to sit there and allow other people to take the sacrifice, and then you enjoy the benefits. So I'm not going to hold back, because again, I'm talking to my people. I'm talking about people who I'm related to. Because a whole bunch of you, we have common ancestry. We come from the same genetic line of people. And why is it that some of us understand that we need to stand up, and the rest of you just sit back and take short money, take short quality of life, take everything short, get depressed, get sick, kill yourself essentially, because that's what it is. That's self-induced suicide. You're killing yourself. And by so doing, you're passing that on generationally to your people, to your children. Because you're too cowardly to stand up. You're too cowardly to call out the press. You're too cowardly. And I've been hearing about people telling me, and in fact there was a program I was watching on, I think it was Make We Talk or something like that with Make We Talk. But they had a gentleman on there, I think Small, who was apparently a historian. I don't know if he's self-taught. There was Mr. Rattigan on there, and there's Tavares. Mr. Tavares is a host. Make We Talk. And they were talking about the history of Jamaica and the political scene and the amount of nonsense that we as a people supported. And as a result, we have inherited a political system that's still undermining us as a people and the quality of life that we can enjoy. So the reality is that pay attention to what these people are saying. But you know, the takeaway from what I saw and learned was, of the three people on there, the host, the historian, there was another gentleman too, apparently he's a US resident or citizen as well. From his discussions, he has been in the military or some kind of law enforcement, and then Mr. Rattigan. But the takeaway from what I saw there was that everybody wants to talk, but nobody's doing anything. Mr. Rattigan said he filed a lawsuit, which we all knew about, and he's going to set up a fund, and he apparently is doing stuff. But the rest of people just want to talk and glorify themselves in what they know and this and that. But what kind of structure are you putting in place with all this talking to make a difference? And I'm like, I submit, if you're tired, if you don't want to do anything for the country, that's your right. But don't put yourself out there and load up people with information that frustrates them, makes them angry, and then you have no solution. Don't just talk, come up with solutions. Because that's the other cowardly thing that I'm pointing out today. So it's not just the people who are there that know what's happening, that are aware of the crime and corruption that's going on, not only within their community but amongst politicians and their political leadership, and they refuse to do anything about it. Not only those cowardly people that we find in the press, but it's the cowardly people who come on here and blog and do all that talking and have no damn solutions whatsoever. And it's not about being angry while I'm saying it. I'm saying it because it needs to be said. You know, for some odd reason, I'm not like the typical person. When I was a kid, my mom, they told me I used to have a temper. But for some reason, I've been tempered down over the years. I don't get angry often. In fact, a lot of the times when I do seem like I'm angry, I have to build up to that point and literally put myself in there to make a point. And then you're making the point and letting people know this is unacceptable. So you display feelings and demonstrate show of anger, but it's just a show to say to people, it's making me angry, but it should make you angry as well. It's not intelligent for anybody to sit down and accept the nonsense that's going on. Are you free people? Are you people who understand what freedom is? And I will say again to everybody that's listening that this nonsense about the Europeans giving you freedom, if you accept that, that means you're not free. Nobody can give you freedom. Freedom is not only an intellectual state of mind. Freedom is a physical attribute that you have taken for yourself and declared for yourself. So this whole idea that we were free or we are free, if you accept the European way of doing things where you got emancipation and you weren't free, you've never been free, and that's why you sit down and you're so scared to stand up, because it's the same fear of wanting to be free and the irresponsibility that comes with that kind of position. that has kept us subject to the abuse that we face from these politicians and political leadership and the economic systems that they put in place to simply suck life out of you and your future. So I'm not afraid to call people or call out people. If you're a coward, you're a coward. But don't just come out there and do all that talking. I'm talking to bloggers now. Do all that talking and do all that talking, rile up people, and then you have no solutions. None. You have a real concern for the people of Jamaica and the people of the planet, because again, everything is relative and it's connected. Jamaica is not an isolated island that has no effect on the rest of the world, and the world is not devoid of affecting Jamaica. It's an interrelationship between people, whether they're on the continent or North America, South America, Europe, Africa, or in the islands. We're all connected, and anything that happens in Trinidad, believe it or not, has repercussions here. Because once we hear about what's happening in Trinidad, somebody's thought pattern is affected by it, and therefore it affects their behavior and our behavior. So I don't think the world is just this isolated place that we're not connected and we don't. It doesn't affect us what happens in one part of the world. It does. And we have to understand this. And so I'm again saying, bloggers and people on social media who are doing a lot of talking, don't just talk. Structure your programs and your presentations so that you can put people together who can either come up with solutions or you come up with solutions. And the solutions are there. I don't want anybody to out there thinking that it can't be done. It's been done already. The world is not in isolation, as I said. People have done the things that's is now happening to Jamaicans in Jamaica, and people have put measures in place to correct it. So the fact is, it can be done. If we know the problems or the issues, we can fix them. And so those people are identifying all these issues and problems with our nation. Then it's for us, those same people, if you can identify the problems, then you can play a role in coming up with the solutions. In Jamaica's case, and from my perspective, the most important thing we need to do now is fix the judiciary and the political leadership. Those two elements of our society are the two elements that are creating havoc on the nation. There's no other two elements that's so critical to fixing Jamaica's problems. Here, on one finger, we have the politicians who make up government. We put all kind of people in there, and that's because of our democratic process. But that's not the problem. The problem is we put these people in there and then we wash our hands and leave them to run amok of the system, destroy the country, ruin our lives, and then there are no consequences to those actions. And as long as we keep allowing that kind of thing to happen, we're going to have the same problem, and we're going to hear the same kind of nonsense being repeated century after century. So on finger number one, where we have the politicians, we need to come up with solutions that fix the issues. And people know solutions. One, term limits. Two, if you go in there and you screw up, then we have in our constitution that if you screw up along XX line, then regardless of how many people vote for you, you're out. If you go in there and you commit crimes and you're busted with fraud, you're out. There are no second chances or you decide you're going to resign or not resign. Once you're caught doing it, boom, you're automatically out. Put it in the constitution. Once you commit crimes against the nation as a political leader or politician, then you're out. Don't need no vote. Don't need no prime minister to decide we're going to shuffle you and shift you around or put you someplace where you're still getting money. You're out. And if the prime minister falls on the sword because he refused to enforce what the law is or the constitution said, then as I said, fall on the sword. He's out. And all we have to do is put those things in place. But how do we get to put them in place? You have to participate in constitutional reform. You can't sit down and allow the same people who are messing up the country, who we are talking about that we need to put measures in place to control their behavior. You just allow them to do take action to fix your country, because you're not going to fix it. Because, for example, why is it that a past prime minister is going to get an increase on his pension when the current prime minister gets an increase on their income? Where can that kind of logic comes from? That's the biggest scam I've ever heard of in the history of politics and countries. I don't think there's another country on the planet that has that nonsense. And if there is, please find out and let me know. You put it out there. The biggest scam you can think of. Some prime minister in the past put in place that he must get paid every time another prime minister in the present gets paid. You ever hear that kind of nonsense? And because time has elapsed, because of that, politicians deserve a pay hike. You're paying a politician way above his pay grade already. You're paying him way above what everybody else is getting. He has superior benefits to whatever anybody else is getting. His salary, current, can keep abreast or keep up with inflation. Why are you giving him an increase? Time doesn't dictate increase in salary. Performance, when you get the country to a point where the country is so stable, then that's when you discuss increase. And guess what? If the countries enjoy economic boom instead of bust, and people are living the highest quality of life, there is no need to raise salaries, because in so doing we're pushing inflation. And the government's job and our job as a people is to fight inflation and keep inflation down. This whole idea that every year after year that inflation must be part of our system of government and our economy is nonsense. Inflation occurs because people artificially inflate things and push the price up. There's no logic behind prices just keep going up and up and up and up. Because in terms of food supply, the countries around the world that produce the most food that people eat around the planet dump a significant percentage of the food they produce. So instead of selling it out there at a lower price point so that people can purchase more and do more with less money, what they do, they dump it. Because they're manipulating the economic systems so that they remain rich, other people remain poor. Everything is manipulated on this planet. The economy, inflation don't just grow. It's nonsense. And we have to educate our people to say, if we're putting a government's role is to fight inflation, not embrace it. But when you have a government, an elected person that goes in there and all they want to do is chase inflation, then we're in trouble. That's what's been happening. So again, going back to government, we know the problems. We know what we need to have. So put measures in place. Put measures in place constitutionally, in the Constitution, entrenched in the Constitution, that these people pay a penalty for failure. Term limits. If you're committing crimes or you're busted or committing crimes, fraud, whatever, where you're a sexual deviant and you're abusing kids or abusing women or abusing wherever, then guess what? You can't be in government. We put it in the Constitution. And if we put those things in the Constitution, we can limit who runs as our political leaders. Alright, so it's not the present system where we have, where as long as people vote for you, then you can become a political leader or an elected official. If we have the status established in the Constitution that only these kinds of persons can run, people who are clean, honest, decent, not involved in crime, haven't been convicted of crime, can run, then guess what? Only those people can run, and therefore we get the best persons in terms of honesty, ethically, in terms of their behavior, it's at the highest limit, and that's what we want to sell. So that's for the politicians. In the courts, the first thing we have to establish our own court system. We don't have a court system that's Jamaican. We have a court system that belongs to the British or the English. It's the King's Court. Yeah, most people don't know that. It's not Jamaica court, it's a King's Court. And by putting measures in place for the people who serve on the bench in our judicial system, we can certainly ensure that we don't have the level of corruption that's occurring now. And nobody can deny the fact that corruption is going on in the courts. I've identified it and produced evidence to you online here that corruption is alive and well. And it means that if we know it's alive and well, we can measure it, we can calculate the effects it's having on our judicial system, and we can cure it. And that's what we have to do. So those two elements we have to address. And in winding up, I'm saying, so don't be a coward. Don't be this cowardly individual who lives in Jamaica or lives abroad. And I'm saying it to people who live abroad too. Not only about Jamaica now, but we have a whole bunch of Jamaicans who live in the US, who are US citizens and have the power to vote in US elections. And you sit down and you either don't vote, you don't participate, and therefore when people like DeSantis comes in and makes all kind of rules that undermine the likelihood of your people being successful or not feel targeted, then you don't do anything about it. You have people like who get elected because you don't vote, you don't participate. The same thing happens in Jamaica. Why is it that our people aren't participating in elections again? And in the past we used to have more people participation. I submit that the only reason that's going on is because people are not educated to understand that they have a role to play as a citizen in the country and how important it is. So one of the things they pulled out of our educational system is civics, and they pulled it out for the very same reason, that politicians want to have the minimal amount of people voting so that they can control who gets into office, and the vast majority of people sit home and don't vote. And the vast majority of people who vote, a lot of them, a large percentage of them, take bribe to go vote. Instead of us educating our children from school and our adults through civics, tell them the importance of government, the importance of the Constitution, the importance of them voting, and the effects it can have on them economically and financially. In short, break it down so they don't just see themselves as somebody to vote in an election, but they understand the consequence of not voting means you're going to get a bad government, you're going to get bad officials, you can't do anything about it, and you get people who rip you off, overtax you, and therefore you have less money to live, your children have less money to live. When you do get sick, you don't have any money to go to the hospital or be treated, you can't afford insurance. And in fact, in a country that's doing well, healthcare should be free. But you can't get it because you don't take time to sit down and get a constitution that works for you. So it's important that you understand that this whole event with what happened with the Prime Minister and his present government is a signal to you. Look for the silver lining, as I've always said. The silver lining is that, yeah, we identify how abusive these politicians are, how criminal are their actions when it comes to the economy and you and your family. And now it's your opportunity. You have the opportunity. And I would submit that you need to take the responsibility to go out there and fix it. Don't just sit down at home and allow these very same politicians to go rewrite your constitution that screws you over even more. Because that's what they're doing. How is a politician now, and I hear this is what they're putting in the constitution. The Prime Minister at some point had wanted to put that they can keep secrets from the people up to 60 years. Now, which worker can come to your business place and keep secrets from the boss and saying can keep it for 60 years? So these people are planning to tell you you have no say in your country and you don't have the importance that you think you need to have. We are the important factor. We do whatever we want to do, and regardless of what we do, how bad it is, then we don't have to tell about it for 60 years. And what are you going to do after 60 years? The man is dead and gone, so you can't lock him up, you can't charge him, you can't take his assets because the statute of limitation has expired. Why do you think they put these time limits on stuff like that? They put it there not to protect you or protect your country from bad news. They put it there to protect themselves from being prosecuted. That's why they do it. So Jamaica, and in fact, I don't believe any country should have any top secret, nothing. If you're a democratic country with people you're representing, it means that you should understand that you need to tell the people exactly what's going on in their country. So here in little Jamaica, with less than 4 million people, according to our census, less than 4 million people, you elect 63 people or so to government to work for you, and they go in there, rip you off, damage the country, sell you out, and then say, oh, we don't have to tell you anything. We can rip you off and keep all of that to ourselves. And then there's no way you can get that for 60 years, because when they make that ruling now, it goes in front of the court, and the court is going to say, oh, but you can't challenge this, you can't, because they have in law 60 years. So it shouldn't be 1 year, 2 year, no, nothing. Once a crime is discovered, once an action is being taken by the government, the people need to know. We need to have public broadcasts of everything that's happening in Parliament. People should be able to log on to a public forum, public cable station, and just listen to what's going on a daily basis on everything the government is doing. And this nonsense about keeping secrets. So again, understand, they don't want to be locked up or charged or have their assets taken. So they want time limits on when they can keep information locked down under lock and key. And even if you know about it, and the people of Jamaica know about it, which we're going to find out, and we're going to find out before, because you can't keep secrets in this kind of country, then we can't do anything about it, because the courts are going to say, no, well, it's top secret, and the law say you can't do it. The Constitution say you're not entitled to charge these people. So that's one of the things you need to pay attention to. Education. Educate people to understand the implication and the consequences of not being a part of your country. So when you have politicians going there with their corrupt behavior and they make laws that suppress your right, and you're not out there screaming or stopping them or firing them before they have the opportunity, then guess what? As I've always said, you deserve it. You deserve it. And don't complain. Don't go online, don't go on in the internet, don't go on social media and spew all that venom, even if you're educating people when you did nothing or you didn't encourage people to do anything about it. But I said, not only encourage people, but make sure you're doing something. Participate. Insist. And if government is now sitting in private or making rules about the Constitution and even letting you know, but then you have no say one way or the other, because if you don't have a say, then it means you don't have a say. If they're in that position, take them to court now and insist that they need to put measures in place that insist or create the opportunity for maximum participation by the people, so that they can elect a government of the people, by the people, from the people. Alright, so those two elements have to be dealt with, and I think it should be a priority. On the other hand, I'm asking you to revisit my videos, share them, share it with as many people as you can. What's on there is not stale news, old news. Everything I put out is current stuff that will be current the day you listen to it, and it's designed to hopefully inspire people to stand up and be counted and understand that you're a valuable part of humanity, and your humanity doesn't end on the job or when you get home and you eat your dinner and you fall asleep. Your humanity and your responsibility as a human being doesn't end until you leave the planet. Doesn't end until you have Alzheimer's and you can't remember a thing. And you know why most of us going to have Alzheimer's and get sick? Because we can't afford to eat the right way. We can't treat ourselves the way we should be, because we're so tied down in a corrupt government system that we can't afford the health care we want, the kind of life we need to live to enjoy the best life possible. So we end up being sick early, and so you need to step up. Thank you. Have a great one. Hopefully you'll hear from me in another video soon. But like most people who are concerned, I'm doing something about it. Like I told you, I took action before, against government ministers or ministries. I've taken action that's in court now against the judiciary, including Justice Sykes. It's sitting in the courts, can't be heard because they refuse to put those things up there to be heard. But I did it anyway because it's important. It's a part of our history that people can go in when they're reviewing the system and say, these are reasons why we need to have the system reformed. Anthony Tharp isn't just talking, he actually took action so people have the evidence to back up what we're saying. We need to reform the system. And this is one of the reasons. Here's the evidence that we need to reform the system, because here's the clear evidence that judges are participating in corrupt behavior, fraudulent behavior with attorneys and people on the outside who are litigating, that leadership or management of the court is corrupt because they're not correcting these ill acts by these people. And so nobody can say there isn't evidence, or it's just conjecture. People just know, yeah, we know something is happening, but we can't do anything about it. Not true. You can and you should and you must, to generate and guarantee that people have the best lifestyle possible, safest lifestyle. Because guess what? When those people in those places are committing crimes, them other people out there who want to justify their criminal behavior are going to say, well, if them doing it, then what do you think I'm going to do down here? If a judge can be committing crime and get away with it, why shouldn't I be committing crimes and getting away with it as well? And if I get caught, I can probably bribe my way out of it. Thank you. Have a good one. It was great talking to you again. Still pretty hot. I hear you're having rains in Jamaica. Enjoy it. Pray those mosquitoes don't come out. But as I've always said, find the people who you consider your family, your loved ones. Pull them close, hug them, kiss them, and realize that you're amongst the most valuable persons on the planet if you take responsibility and responsible action for your lifestyle. Because in so doing, you're not only helping your lifestyle, you're helping everybody else's. Don't just ignore the nonsense that's going on. You didn't just come to sit on planet Earth and work for a bunch of racist people or people who make money off you using racist economic systems that's developed just for that. Empower them and make you poor. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.